The church that I grew up in is being torn down. Like the literal building is about to be demolished. And it's sad. Yeah, I wish it wasn't happening, despite how far I've moved from my roots in that church. At the same time, I am deeply grateful to have a childhood church to mourn. I've branched way out from those roots, but they're still there, and they've informed what I need in adulthood. Even after I stopped regularly attending any church during college, I knew the value of a healthy church community. I knew the importance of children's programming and the kind of love a child can develop for the physical church building. Those roots are how I knew that I needed Fountain Street Church, and a large part of why John and I started attending here when I was pregnant with our first baby in 2012. And let me tell you, being a heavily pregnant newcomer will get you noticed. One of the ministers greeted us right away, gave us a tour of the second and third floors, which Lydia Stubbs had turned into a charming, almost magical setting for character school. And I was genuinely excited at the thought of my yet unborn children growing up here. When a church chooses to offer children nourishing, engaging programming, yes, we give them vital foundations and tools for their lives and the communities that they eventually join. That is absolutely a priority here at FSC and the bulk of the work that we do upstairs. But today I want to highlight something else that happens when babies, kids, and teenagers are intentionally woven into the community of the church. I could find research and data on how these things impact the church finances, how the children as adults improve their own situations, but I want to talk about something more personal to each of us as adults. It's something that comes down to us each as individuals, but it's still ultimately about the larger, long-term strength of our church community. Each one of us has the chance to grow the best kind of legacy, to be a kind, safe adult within this rich, welcoming space. Whether you work in the character school, offer words or music from the chancel, or simply share a smile with a kiddo on a Sunday morning. They will remember that, and they will carry it with them. We will be the constant, gentle giants of their youth. If you would indulge me for a minute, I didn't grow up at Fountain Street, but I love hearing tidbits of history from those of you who did. So, if you grew up here, or spent your childhood here, please give a woo or a clap or make some sort of noise. Go ahead. That's nice, thank you. Now, anyone who just made a noise, if you're comfortable doing so, please call out the name of some memorable adult who was here during your childhood. It's okay if we don't catch all of the names, but just please call out a name or two. Nice. Thank you. That's lovely. Thank you for bringing them into this space for a moment. We might not be here without them. As Reverend Dannison often says, we are sitting beneath the shade of trees planted by those who are no longer here, at least not physically. To explain how I arrived at this idea of constant, gentle church giants, I'd like to share just a little snapshot of my own childhood church experience and how I've come to remember the giants of my earliest years. I was the fourth generation on my mother's side to attend Bethel Christian Reformed Church. My parents were married there in 1978. Among the members and congregants that I saw every Sunday were my grandpa and aunt, some cousins, friends I'd known since we were babies together, numerous aunties and uncles who weren't actually relatives, but were close, or in some cases, lifelong friends of my parents. And the thing is, even though I didn't regularly interact with all of the people in my church, I recognized their names and faces. I knew that my parents knew them. I knew they'd probably help me if I asked. I developed a deep sense of security about those people in that place. And I see now that part of the security came from the way my church invested in us kids with their time and their money. And I need to stop and acknowledge that that is not everyone's church experience. Children experience awful things in church settings far too often, and nothing I'm saying is meant to gloss over that. I recognize that I was extremely fortunate that the vast majority of adults in my life, both in and out of church, were kind people who treated children with respect. I do a lot of things differently than they did, but overall, I felt safe and loved as every child should. So, like many of you, a few of my own gentle giants come quickly to mind. And because the church was like 99% Dutch, some of these people were really tall and tended to have the names to measure up. Jack Van Duzelaar always sat right in front of us on Sunday mornings, and he always had a roll of Lifesavers, which he'd quietly extend my way during the sermon. Once he even asked what my favorite candy was, and the next week, there it was. I think it was green Lifesavers. Pat DeKeevers is my mom's friend from childhood, and she was one of our organists. Once I left a note on the organ, as a child, I left a note on the organ asking her to play a certain piece, and she totally did it. We love Pat. Bill Visser was someone I didn't really know until after my father died in 1996. We received unmeasurable church support, but Bill did something very specific. He spent hours, days, weeks cleaning and finishing the interior woodwork that my father had been too ill to complete. His quiet, constant presence in our home during a time of grief was a gift that we see every time we visit my mom and stepdad. Going beyond the people of my church, the building itself was a gentle giant. My friends and I loved nothing more than running around the place when the crowds broke up, hiding among the robes in the choir closet, surveying the sanctuary from the heights of the balcony. I was recently in that church for the last time, most likely, with some of my closest friends who also grew up there and whose families have equally deep roots. We were instantly transported to our childhoods, running up flights of stairs to stand in special spots, and excitedly opening doors to see if the rooms felt the same. They felt smaller. Now, Fountain Street Church in 2025 is very different to Bethel Christian Reformed Church in the 1980s and 90s, and that's a good thing. That's how it should be. But a huge part of what I love about my job here is watching the kids in Character School, Tower Club, and Fountain Club experience their own version of the magic that I experienced. I see it in how they're learning the names of their friends' parents. I see it in how they observe Sunday rituals like roses and thorns, where they have the chance to share joyous and difficult things from their lives and about their feelings. I see it in my own child's awe at our sanctuary and my other child's happiness to help out in the nursery. And I definitely see it when we do overnight lock-ins with the teenagers. They love this place. And I see it in your faces when they're all up here for their blessing, as they just were. The patience and smiles that you give them are beautiful, and they'll remember that, and they will take it with them. I believe the children's experiences at Fountain Street Church are giving them something invaluable, and a lot of it comes from just being here, and a lot of it is the result of dedicated staff and volunteers, stretching back to long before I set foot in this building. People like Jack Bowers, Sue Cinnamon, and Lydia Stubbs are certainly giants of our history, and I am more honored than I can say to carry on their work. And of course, I don't do that work alone. Every Sunday, I depend on our caretakers and classroom leaders. And I'm going to say their names because we should all know them. Sylvia Saucedo DeVries, Amaya King, Ren Burns, Tom Keys, Elise Moore, Leela Penny, Sarah Vander Ark, Caleb DeVries, and Shelby Valente. That's our Character School staff. And as we continue to grow, we will need more Sunday staff to oversee lessons and crafts and to ensure safety for our very busy, very active children. I also depend on Todd and Patty Johnson, who spend most of their early Sunday afternoons hanging out with me and the Fountain Clubbers. Patty and Todd volunteer their time, humor, and creative energy for our teenagers, and they've been doing that for years. If you see them selling wreaths after the service, please thank them. And today, as I have on a handful of Sundays since I began, I'm grateful to Cindy Peck, who is standing in for me as we speak right now, giving her time for the benefit of the Character School kids. On the second floor, we don't use screens or battery-operated toys. We make a lot of art, we read a lot of books, and I've got wish lists of book series that would beautifully expand on ideas of world religions, humanism, science, and ethics. We're increasingly focused on religious literacy, the OWL program, and functional ethics, but we can do more. We could offer weekday classes on specific faith traditions. We could be a training hub for the OWL program. I'll say a little more about the OWL program. We could host ethics workshops where children get a chance to practice making tough decisions when both of your options seem like the right thing to do. The Fountain Club will soon be getting a lounge, a sort of third space where they can do everything from tarot readings to Bible studies if they want. Maybe at some point we'll have a youth minister who knows exactly how to curate the spaces and conversations that our teens need and deserve. So this word constant, I put it in the title for a reason. None of us can be here every Sunday, and none of us will be here forever. I want this place to outlive all of us, but that means we have to intentionally weave children into the fabric of what we do. We have to constantly demonstrate how important they are to Fountain Street Church, and that takes all kinds of efforts. And a lot is possible if we choose to build it, if we choose to be constant for the kiddos today and in generations to come. I've mentioned a couple of ideas, but I'll say a couple more specific, a couple more specific things. Our space could become more interactive. And I don't mean screens and electronics, but physical structures that encourage play and movement around our various themes. Did you know that you can put giant, pretend trees into the corners, and they're big enough for kids to crawl in and out of like little chipmunks? And it would be perfect for our Wheel of the Year lessons and observations and our seasonal lessons. I've also been envisioning whole walls dedicated to religious literacy. Posters, globes, tools, sacred objects, anything that provides the big picture of what religion is and then gives them tangible details about what that means for people like them. We want to grow the OWL program. OWL is an acronym for Our Whole Lives, and it's a sexuality education curriculum developed by the UUA and the UCC. It's got a history here, but we've been trying to sort of bring it back in a more formal way. We've already hosted one training for the elementary age curriculum, but we want to train people to teach middle school, high school, adult classes, because they have curriculums for every age up through adulthood. This is no small undertaking, but desperately needed in our community now more than ever. So why the reading that Ann gave us about the big friendly giant, the BFG, before the sermon? Unsurprisingly, the character popped into my mind when I started thinking of all of us as gentle giants. And I loved learning that the BFG originated as a short story within an older novel. I didn't know that. But he needed to do more than simply be a kind, literal giant to make it into the sermon. The BFG's main gig is gifting good dreams to children. He does this through a magical process of catching dreams from the air, where they float around, gently buzzing like contented bees. Most people are fully unaware of the dreams being there, but the BFG is special. He pays attention. He captures the dreams in jars, saving the good ones, and at night he sends the dreams into the air where children are sleeping, and the children breathe them in to have wonderful dreams. In addition to being big friendly giants for the kids here, we're giving them dreams. When they look at the cool stuff the Tower and Fountain Clubbers do, when they see their parents laughing and excitedly brainstorming about church projects together, when they meet a Fountain Street artist who's living their own creative truth, when they see older members in beautiful clothes and hugging friends, these are all things to look forward to. These are dreams to help them become fully themselves. Heck, I'm in my 40s, and I still get inspired about my future by many of you. I've met many of my favorite people in these walls, and you might not seem as Dutch as tall as the Dutch giants of my youth, but you are certainly among them in my heart. And I want that for our kids. As for the responsive reading that Morgan led this morning, clearly the author, Reverend Leslie Takahashi, is talking about the people and children of our country. Too many children are being harmed for the sake of power, money, or whatever gross excuse the system declares. We can't help every child, and that is heartbreaking. But we have a chance right here to give these children stability, knowledge, connection, and a safe place to land at every stage of their life. Raising kids is a form of resistance. Building community is a form of resistance, and doing both with intention is wildly powerful. And I'm seeing it happen every day in my own children, in the kids I've watched grow up here, and in the families we only see every few months or so. Maybe some of them will go on to make the world better for the children who don't have those things. We're making connections that bear fruit well beyond our walls, and we need these connections. 21st century parents feel pressure to make their families present in extracurricular activities, online platforms, their schools, civil discourse, everywhere. Church seems quaint and simple by comparison. It doesn't get your kids into certain schools, and it doesn't add a line to your resume. Yet you're bringing your kids and grandkids here, and other people will too. I think it's because we have something over the competition. Families don't outgrow church. It's not centered around a seasonal sport or a theater production that will close, and you can't age out. Our church is accessible, no matter your socioeconomic situation, and we're working to improve accessibility for every kind of body. Another way we can actively, intentionally show each child that they're worth our investment. All we ask is that families be here, and if they show up in some combination of pajamas, costumes, and yesterday's hairdo, we celebrate because it means they feel comfortable and safe. I want Fountain Street Church to be around forever, and our future is bright in that regard. At the same time, should it someday close its doors, it must be a church worth mourning, like mine was. And part of that is being constant, gentle giants who care for and invest in our youngest members. We're giving them myths and legends that they will carry for the rest of their lives, and we're creating our own legacies for posterity. And that's a gift for all of us. So, thank you.